Yo, what is good, Knicks Nation? Welcome back to another Knicks Media live stream. I'm joined by the man Alex from Knicks Fan TV today to discuss what's going on with these New York Knicks. It is a series tied at 1-1. We're back at the Garden tomorrow night. Alex, how you feeling today, my man?
You know, Richie, I'm doing all right. I was aggravated after losing the second game, but I'm back, recharged, focused, looking at game 3 as an opportunity that I think the Knicks will bounce back in that one. But I'm all right, man. I was just aggravated. That if we were gonna lose, I didn't need to see that. You know what I mean? Like I could deal with like close ones. Like, all right, these teams are evenly matched. After that, that's brutal, man. It's brutal to just be pulverized in that fashion.
Oh, absolutely, bro. On that stage, too, I mean, Knicks fans were living high off that game-win victory, as we should. But I had a feeling game 2 was going to be really difficult. And unfortunately, we didn't just lose, but we got destroyed and we got embarrassed. And it was an overall mess from the coaching staff, from every player on the damn team, sloppiness, turnovers, and we'll get into it and how they need to really bounce back in game number 3. But just to flip it to the optimistic perspective of this, Alex, I thought going into this series, the Knicks have to win one of the first 2 games in Cleveland if they have a chance of winning the series. And that's exactly what they did.
They did. And you look at that as a success, right? Because it's not just they won, like, it wasn't like they won game 2, they won game 1. Which is different. When you go into the opponent's home, take game 1, that's more of a statement than bouncing back in game 2. What was it? There's a percentage that if you win game 1, usually 77% of the time, you go on to win the series. So you like seeing those numbers, you like those statistics. Obviously, it's not a guarantee the Knicks will win the series, but being able to come out physical the way that they did and hustle the way they did. They didn't really have the best offense that you saw in game 1, right? But you saw Randall, Brunson being able to score. Hart was an X factor that series, but a lot of it was getting second chance opportunities and capitalizing on the steals from the Cavaliers turnovers, why the Knicks won that one. Unfortunately, game 2, Cavaliers came correct. They didn't allow the Knicks to do that, but still, you go home 1-1, you then ruin the Cavs home court advantage, which is a good way to look at it.
And that was exactly my next point, Alex. The Knicks have home court advantage because if they win every game at the Garden, we win the damn series. You sweep the next 2 games at the Garden, Friday and Sunday. A lot easier said than done, obviously. Even if you go back to Cleveland and you lose, you're back home at the Garden for game 6. And that's the series right there. So the Knicks just got to focus in on protecting home court. We flipped it. We have home court advantage right now. The last 5 games, 3 out of the 2 games, if it goes 7, is at MSG, which is really in the Knicks' favor. So shout out to everybody who's tuning into the chat. We're excited to have Alex from Knicks Fan TV. You guys know him. He's a special guest on the channel here and there, and you guys know where to find him. He's on Knicks Fan TV. He's at Alex down below. His Twitter account's linked down below in the description if you want to check him out. Alex, always a pleasure to have you on, my man. So let's get deeper into what we want to see for game number 3, right? What are the adjustments that you think Tom Thibodeau and this Knicks team must make in order to win this game at Madison Square Garden? Because this is turning into like a series where it's not only who's going to be the hottest from downtown, who's going to be shooting the ball well, but it's turning into like a physicality, toughness battle. And game number 1, that, like you said, the Knicks punched them first, and the Cavs weren't able to respond. And all we heard from Cavs players leading up to game 2 was like, oh, okay, we're going to punch first. Oh, this. And then they backed it up, man. They came out there, and they were literally throwing elbows, it felt like, and they just completely outworked this Knicks team. They took away what we did so good in game 1, which was out-hustling them, crashing the rebounds, playing fast, and they took that away. So what do you think the Knicks got to do in game number 3 in order to get the W?
I think first thing that the Knicks need to do, and this is from a defensive standpoint for Tom Thibodeau, he has to figure out a way to put the ball back in Donovan Mitchell's hands, right? We saw Darius Garland be the primary initiator for the Cavaliers offense. And once Darius Garland's able to get going downhill, find his spots, it opens up his game, and then it puts the Knicks defense on their heels because he's a 3-level scorer. And when you have a 3-level scorer that can, get into rhythm, it's hard to predict what they're going to do next. And you saw Garland was like pulling up from like 25, 26 feet out and just easily able to drain those shots. And that's something that he's been able to, that team between him and Mitchell are known to do. So Tibbs has to figure out how to get the ball back in Donovan Mitchell's hands, because as we saw in game one, when you have Spida as the initiator, Garland's not, in my opinion, the greatest working off ball. He can, but he's best on ball and then allowing everyone else to get into their rhythm. Like Donovan Mitchell, we know can go get his own whenever he feels like it. But when you can deny Garland from getting into position, finding his spots off ball, then the Knicks are back in control, because you're then asking Donovan Mitchell to be what we didn't want to see from Julius Randle, right? To do everything. And when you got to force Donovan Mitchell to do everything and he doesn't have a supporting cast, that goes in the Knicks' favor. Next thing I want to see, 3-point shooting, is you already touched on, Richie. Like, it's going to see who's going to be hot from scoring from downtown, but we're not getting any production from Quentin Grimes, Emmanuel Quickley, and even RJ Barrett right now. And those guys need to be able to shoot from three, especially Grimes and Quickley. That's what their games are. And once you can do that, you allow Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, and even RJ to get downhill and get to their spots. Sure, the Cavs are very good at protecting the paint, but when you have to keep the defense honest, and that way it prohibits them from double teaming, then you can start seeing this offense start to unfold. But that also goes back to Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle being able to be playmakers as well and finding those guys. I thought in game two, a little too much, we saw Brunson, I think a little uncharacteristically to a certain degree, just looking for his own way too early. I thought you should have been looking for Grimes, should have been looking for RJ, somebody else, just to get them going, getting them in rhythm, because Brunson could go, like Donovan Mitchell, can get going whenever, right? And Julius Randle, our first quarter scorer, wasn't really able to do that in game two. So I'd like to see some of that as well. And then the third thing I want to see, man, I want to see Randle just be physical with Mobley. Like, make him pay. He's a 20-year-old. Mobley is a solid talent, man. He's going to be really good in the league for a long time. Don't get me wrong. But he's 20 years old, doesn't have his body hasn't filled out like Randall's has, right? We're talking about a 7-footer, 215 going against a 6'8" guy who's 250. Like that's a big difference. Difference. So once Randle can get going downhill and make Mobley have to defend at all three levels, I think that's going to be another aspect to the Knicks game just unfolding as well.
Speaking of Randle, we heard from Thibodeau today that I think Randle's going to go back to his usual minutes, because a big difference of the minutes from Tom Thibodeau in the first two games is Julius Randle is getting checked out within the first 5 minutes. And every Knicks fan knows that's not normal. And I think that's because he's nursing his ankle and he's not in right shape. So Thibodeau did not want to overwork him in that first quarter to really make sure that he's sustainable. But now he believes that Randle's back in shape. And that's where Randle was at his best in that first quarter. Throughout the whole season, Randle would get 10 to 12 points in the first quarter because he'd play the entire first quarter. So hopefully Randle can help out this Knicks team, get us off to a fast start. I agree that Jalen Brunson, he can get his points whenever he wants, but he needs to get his teammates involved a little bit better. He needs to be able to find Quentin Grimes open for three. Quentin Grimes needs to be a little more aggressive in my liking. He's not shooting enough. Like, if you miss a couple shots, keep shooting. He is a sharpshooter, so Quentin Grimes got to be able to do that, and if his shot's not there, attack the paint. We've seen him be aggressive, attacking downhill, and be a playmaker at times as well. And then RJ Barrett, man, I do want to talk about him because he's been a very polarizing topic amongst Knicks Twitter, as you know, Alex. He's been struggling. I just made a video on him this morning on my channel just talking about what the heck is going on with RJ Barrett. He's just not helping out this Knicks team in the playoffs at all. So what are you seeing from him? Because obviously his regular season was not great. From the perspective of him breaking out in year 4, he kind of regressed from a standpoint from year number 3, statistically speaking. His shots from beyond the arc just does not look like he's in rhythm. And the Cavaliers' strength is protecting the paint. RJ Barrett's strength is going to the paint, and he's not being able to do that. So what do you think RJ needs to work on in order for him to find his rhythm against this Cleveland Cavaliers team? Because if he's done, if he's dusted, and if he's doing the same thing he did in game number 1 and 2 for the remainder of the series, I don't know if the Knicks have a chance, because RJ Barrett needs to step up. We cannot rely on Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle to do all the work. And obviously, Quickley and Grimes need to be talked about as well. It's not just RJ. But I'm looking at RJ, man, because he's in year number 4. I know that he's young, 22 years old, but you're in year 4, RJ. This is your time to shine. And it's not like he's playing okay. He's playing bad. So what's your overall take on RJ Barrett, what he needs to improve on?
I thought he was okay in game 1 from a defensive and playmaking standpoint. Obviously, offense is where you need to see him start to get in a rhythm, especially as you pointed out, the three-point shot has really disappeared. Considering that 2 years ago we saw him shoot 40%, right? Now you have, and then last season he was shooting close to league average, about 34, 35%. Now it's just bad. Now it's like we're talking about 31% from downtown during the regular season. He's not giving you enough 3-point shooting where he's even respectable on the court, right? You see the Cavs just saying, all right, we'll allow RJ to shoot and we'll pack the paint because 9 out of 10 times that's what he wants to do. So with that, there's not much he can really do. It's not like he's going to go practice, get a mid-range jumper during this series or become a sniper from downtown. This is, can the supporting cast help to get RJ going? That's really how this is going to work. Like if he's going to be rolling with that second unit, can you get enough 3-point shooting from Obi Toppin, Manuel Quickley, and can you find enough shooting there between those two guys to allow RJ to get going? Because as you know, and Josh Hart as well. I mean, Josh Hart, he's not going to shoot like high volume amount of threes, but for the 1 and 2 that he does take, he'll make it. But can Quickley and Obi give you enough threes where it's like, all right, we have 3 respectable shooters on the court that opens it up for RJ? Like, and if that's not the case, which this series is looking like it's not going to be, and it's going to be all about hustle, physicality, and so forth, we may need to see RJ get reduced minutes, man. I mean, we saw in game 2, Okoro got 3 minutes the entire game, not injured. Bickerstaff just made that change to LeVert because he's like, look, I need versatility out there. And Tibbs has to do the same thing if RJ's not going to give it to you. I think he's going to start every single game still. Don't get me wrong. And this is where you want him to get going early and like Brunson to find RJ early or find Julius to see, all right, does he have it? Because if he doesn't have it, then you got to figure something else out. Because other than that, it's just going to be a detriment. And then you're going to just have the entire paint just clogged.
I agree, man. I think that RJ Barrett, he thrives the best when he's the second quarter. And it's the bench unit plus RJ Barrett. And I think that's where he needs to really find his rhythm. That's where he needs to find his aggressiveness, because when he's on the court with Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, it's kind of hard for RJ to find his rhythm with that starters. But in that second quarter, it's usually RJ with the whole bench unit. And throughout the regular season, that's where he gets hot. So I'm looking at RJ to be more aggressive in those situations. And then the other guys around him needs to step up as well. We can't just put this all in RJ. And I think some people are kind of over just like putting this pin on RJ that he's the reason we lost that game because he's playing so bad. Well, what about Emmanuel Quickley? What about Quickley and Grimes? And even Julius Randle hasn't had a phenomenal series, to be honest, with the turnovers. So what's your overall thoughts of Quickley and Grimes? Because you mentioned him as well, that there are shooters and they need to step up and they're not stepping up, especially Emmanuel Quickley, man. He's the one player that's kind of really disappointing me because it's not just like he's not shooting the ball well. He just doesn't look comfortable. He doesn't look like his usual confident swagger, playing fun self out there. And I think the Cleveland Cavaliers defense is really getting to him. They're blitzing him. They're doubling him. They're not allowing him to get to his spots. And Quickley looks rattled because not only is he missing his shots, but he's turning the ball over as well. And I don't think this Knicks team has a chance of winning this series if Quickley, Grimes, and RJ, all 3 get back to what they were doing throughout the regular season. So we touched on RJ. What's your thoughts of Quickley and Grimes and how they get into rhythm? Is it a coaching thing? Is it just them two? Is it the players around them? What do you think it is?
I think it's all those things, Richie. I think it's all those things. But to touch on RJ for one last bit before I answer Emmanuel Quickley and Quickley and Grimes, like you're going to get the ire of the fan base when you just got an extension, right? Even though it hasn't kicked in yet. As you mentioned, you're in your 4th year. You've been progressing every single year that you've been here. Like we've seen that all the counting stats go up, even though he hasn't been efficient. But at some point, you need to see him just be able to put it all together. But it's really the contract. Like if we're talking about RJ, not getting an extension yet, everyone's like, okay, it is what it is at this point. We can figure it out towards the end of the season. We already have an idea. The issue is he got extended before the beginning of the 4th season. And now the thought process is, what are we going to do with RJ? Because now he's on this contract. And it's the same thoughts like Randall last year. Like, what are we going to do with this guy? All these other things. And it's just tough to have that type of, it's tough to see the future when you already see when you're looking at like the here and now. That's the issue with RJ. And I think the ire amongst the fan base with Emmanuel Quickley and Quickley and Grimes, though.
I agree.
I'm looking at, I think to get Quick going, you're going to need to put him with Grimes in that second unit. This goes back to an RJ thing. Like, honestly, it's a couple of things with Emmanuel Quickley. Put him out there with Brunson so that way you have two guys who can bring up the ball, be initiators of the offense. It gives that balance where Cleveland has to pick and choose. Who do they want to double? So I think that's one way to get Quickley going, and then allow him to play as an off-ball guard, which he's been accustomed to since his entire time here in New York, and that way he can get into rhythm. Now, when Brunson's off the court and it's just Quickley, I think you got to put Grimes next to him as well, because you need somebody who can not only shoot, but someone who's going to put pressure on the defense in the paint, and that's Quentin Grimes by his ability just to drive, right? He's got that quick first step. I think if you allow him and Quickley just to work with that second unit, I think they can both help each other get into some offensive rhythm. But as of right now, when you have the entire team shooting below 30%, like that's just not good. That's obviously terrible, considering that you need, once again, the court to be open. But I think it's also like for another thing for Grimes is you got to pass him the ball. Shout out to Benji over at Knicks Film School. He tweeted out that Grimes is only averaging 22 touches this playoff series, when on the season he's averaged 31. And then you see in game 2, he only had 2 shot attempts. I know that's partially him having to be aggressive and wanting to create for himself, but you got to give him some looks as well, man.
I agree.
That's like that whole balancing act.
Yeah, it's not only Quentin Grimes being aggressive, but it's the teammates around him to find his shots, because Grimes, as good as he was this year, he's not someone that's known to create his own shot. I mean, he can at times. We've seen him go off the dribble. We've seen him attack baseline, but he's not someone where the ball's in his hand and he's running the pick and roll. Like, you got to find him when he's open. And that's what Randall's been doing a great job of throughout the regular season. Now we're talking. When Grimes is open, he fires it. He finds him. And I think a lot of this has to do with, as a team, Alex, that the Knicks have to do a better job of handling the double teams. That's RJ. That's even Brunson. That's even Julius Randle. I think that when the double teams start to come, they need to stop figuring out to start dribbling and trying to avoid it. Pass the ball, move the rock, get more continuity with offense, because I saw a lot of sloppiness, a lot of turnovers, and the blitzes and the defense that the Cavaliers were playing, the Knicks had no answers for. And now the big test for Tom Thibodeau is, how are you able to adjust from this? Because we saw the Cleveland Cavaliers completely just learn from their L in game 1. They watched the film, they knew exactly what they needed to fix, and they fixed it. Now, this is a good opportunity for the Knicks to do the same thing. Watch the game 2 film. What did the Cavaliers show us that they need to work on and fix in order to go out there and execute a game plan? So I'm looking at head coach Tom Thibodeau and his game plan, because he absolutely needs to step up, because this is not just about the players, it's about the coaching staff. And I think the coaching staff is a big test right now for this playoff series, because I did not like the way that this Knicks team come out there and prepared. And obviously it's also up to do with the players to execute the game plan. The coaches don't play ball, but they really have to make sure they execute a game plan at its top tier. So guys, if you're enjoying the show, please do my boy a favor and hit that thumbs up button if you're having Alex on here from Knicks Fan TV. Always a pleasure to have you on, my man. Always a pleasure, man. So with that take that I just said about the Knicks adjustments in game number 3, in terms of how the Cavaliers went out there in game number 1, they took the L, they saw what they needed to fix, they came out there at more physicality, they punched us, and everything they did. I personally think the Knicks got to adjust to the defensive traps that the Cavaliers are bringing us with the blitzes and the double teams. So how do you think the Knicks are going to be able to adjust to that?
It goes back to getting another initiator out there, man. I think Quickley will have to be that guy. And
seriously, man,
because if you, it goes back to what I just said. Like, if you have to choose between Brunson, Quickley, and Randall, like, who do you want to double team? That's going to leave somebody else open, and it goes to Quickley having to knock down his shots too. So that's really been the biggest surprise to me this series, is that Quickley, who's in consideration for the 6th Man of the Year award, hasn't stepped up really in these first 2 games. And first game you could say, all right, that's fine. We still got the win. We're not going to look at it. But in game 2, where you just look at the score and the deficit, and like in the first couple of minutes when you checked in, like, he got double teamed, he couldn't get to his spot, had a turnover, and then we didn't see him for most of the third quarter, if at all. And when your third best player on your team can't get going, and Quickley's been instrumental to what the Knicks have done this season, it's tough. It's really tough to get going, because you just see, like, throughout the entire regular season, right, you could at least say, all right, we're at least going to get like 12 points from Quickley. We're going to get probably somewhere between 2 to 4 assists, even though all this playmaking won't show up in the stat sheet. And then on top of that, it's his defense, right? But you're not getting all 3 of those things, man. It's really just been shocking to see him, like, be just to be muted in this entire series right now.
I know.
It's really confusing.
Quickley for me is like the guy that he needs to wake up the most, because he has been the reason why this Knicks team caught flames in that second half of the season, where he became the Sixth Man of the Year favorite at one point. I know that it's going to be announced tonight and Brogdon's probably going to win it, but we cannot pretend that Immanuel Quickley's impact on this team is so big, because we have two stars. They're Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. They both need to do their thing. But at the end of the day, if Immanuel Quickley continues to play the way that he's been playing, scared ball and not being his normal self, I don't know if this Knicks team has a chance in this series. And that's scaring me, Alex, because he is the biggest reason why we're so good off the bench, as well as Josh Hart, of course. Obi Toppin brings in good minutes. Isaiah Hartenstein, of course. It's not just one-dimensional off the bench, but Immanuel Quickley, we need him to get his 18, 20 points, catch flames in that right when he gets checked in. When he gets hot. And I do think that, now I'm going to put my optimistic cap back on, Alex. I think that the Garden could help out Quickley, because he feeds off the energy from the crowd, man. I remember in game one, 2 years ago against the Hawks, the game that they lost, I was there, and Quickley caught flames. And remember, that was him as a rookie, and he was going crazy, and he was feeding off the energy of the Garden, and that's just the playoffs 2 years ago. So that he has experience now. He's grown as a player. He's so much better of a player than he was 2 years ago. I think that Madison Square Garden is going to benefit a guy like Immanuel Quickley, because he feeds off the energy from the crowd.
I like that. I like that take, Richie, and I think he will. He does like thriving in the biggest spotlight. It goes back to being confusing, because he's been good on the road and been good at home, right? I mean, we could talk about the 38 points that he had in Boston. I was there for that double overtime game, and there's just a confidence that I just don't see from him right now.
Yeah, that's it too, the confidence.
And that, once again, is, I think what you need to do is let these guys get going early and just start saying, hey, go figure it out. We're here for you. If you make a mistake, we'll pick you back up. And that goes from Brunson to Randle. And not saying that they haven't done that, but I think that's what they need to do. Not saying that's not what they haven't done as leaders, trying to pick him up. I'm saying on the court, let him get going first. Let him figure out where he fits in, because he's a guy that once he sees it fall, I think he can get into rhythm. And honestly, and this might be me being a little too optimistic, I think him finally to get into some sort of rhythm at the end of the Cavaliers game, even though it was mostly in garbage time at that point, I feel like that's going to help a little bit. Just seeing the ball fall in, I think that will help a little bit. I'm not saying he's going to start going out there and torch, drop 30 points, but I think getting a little bit of confidence, getting into a little rhythm, getting the butterflies out of your stomach will help him. And I think that Garden crowd, as you talked about, will definitely help as well.
I agree. Watching that game at the final 5 minutes in garbage time, I was rooting for every bucket to go in, even though we weren't going to win the game, but for that exact reason. We need Quickley to get that jitters out. And even Randle said that he wanted to stay in the game because he was trying to get his conditioning. And then that hard foul from Jarrett Allen, a lot of controversy. Should have Thibodeau left him in or not? That's a whole Tom Thibodeau thing that everyone always harps on. But when it comes to being back at Madison Square Garden, are you going to one of the games?
I'll be at game 4.
Me too.
Nice.
Awesome.
Let's go.
Let's go, baby. I'm down for sure. It's going to be electric. And we said at the top of the show, Alex, the Knicks have home court advantage for this playoffs right now. They do. And they absolutely have to take advantage of the home crowd. Now, let's talk about the two stars, because right now we've been really focusing on the role players. So Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson. Brunson had a great game one. I mean, the fact that he got in foul trouble early, only had 9 minutes in the first half, and then still finished with 20-something points in that second half and led them to win with that clutch shots late in that fourth quarter was a reason why we won. Julius Randle helped out in game one in the first half, but Randle still got to fix his turnovers issues, because whenever he's getting double teamed, he's still not figuring out how to turn down the turnovers. And Jalen Brunson as well. I think the way that you contain a guy like Garland or Donovan Mitchell is Jalen Brunson to match his offensive abilities, right? You can only do so much defensively containing Donovan Mitchell and Garland, but we need somebody on our squad to have a night at the Garden. And what I mean a night, I mean 30 plus, 35 plus. And I know that might be asking for a lot, but this is the NBA playoffs. This is where the stars wake up. So who do you think is going to be that player, Julius Randle or Jalen Brunson or both, to really step up and really lead this team in terms of scoring?
Man, That's tough, Richie, because I was feeling very confident going into game 2 just because I thought the Knicks had this, you hear all the chatter about, it's too physical, blah, 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 which is, it's comical today where you hear Bickerstaff saying, they play it to the end of the whistle. Like, that's how the game goes. After you see the Jarrett Allen foul on Julius Randle, I'm like, this is rich for a guy who was just crying.
Yeah, right.
About all the physicality, but I digress. I think it's going to have to be Brunson in this case. I'd like to see Randle have a big game, but I thought Randle would have a big game in game 2 after getting some run. We'll see. I mean, if Tibbs gives him his normal first quarter run, maybe we could see that. But I think it's going to have to be Brunson. But I think it'll be Brunson, not right out of the gate scoring. It will have to be Brunson facilitating, finding everybody else, and then chipping in once, like here and there in the first, here and there in the second, then really turning it on in the third and fourth quarter once everyone starts to get gas. I think he has to pace himself because he needs to know that fourth quarter is going to come. They're going to need the step back. They're going to need the drives. Then that's where he really has to shine, because you need to get everyone else involved, as we've been talking about this entire thing. But the turnovers, Richie, as you mentioned, like not recognizing the double teams, like this is very uncharacteristic for the Knicks. They average like 13.1 turnovers on the regular season. He had 16 turnovers in the first game. We're still able to combat that, win the first one, but 18 in game 2. And it was like every single way every turnover they had, it was like a new way to turn the ball over. It was crazy, absolutely uncharacteristic. But
it was like embarrassing turnovers to the point where it was like mental errors. I mean, Grimes like just not pick up his dribble and throwing it off someone's head. I forgot who it was. Josh Hart's head. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? I feel like we're like becoming the circus. But the weird thing about that game, Alex, too, is I was looking at the stats. The Knicks had 17 total turnovers. The Cavaliers, do you know how many turnovers they had? 17. They had the same amount of turnovers as the Knicks. And we still got blown out. Isn't that weird? We got to capitalize on their turnovers. I felt like the Cavaliers capitalized on ours, but we did not capitalize on theirs at all.
Richie, there was a point in the second quarter where we couldn't buy a bucket.
That second quarter is where we lost, bro. My gosh.
It was god-awful. I mean, the game, it was like 23-24 going into that quarter, and then we couldn't score for what felt like 5-6 minutes, and that was the whole game. And that's when all the turnovers started to accumulate. So got to be different. Got to protect the rock. I'm expecting Brunson to have to be that guy, man. Like, Randall's going to get his, don't get me wrong, once he starts getting going, but it's really going to come down to Brunson.
I agree, man. And when you're the point guard and you had such a great season as you did, it's not like Brunson's been bad in the playoffs. He had a phenomenal game 1 outside of his foul trouble, but in game 2, he was kind of being a little ISO heavy in my liking. So let's see if he can bounce back and really get this Knicks team back in the win column. So I do want to give a big shout out to the sponsor of today's live show, which is the official sportsbook sponsor of Knicks Media. That is BetUS. So let's get into some betting lines. Obviously, the Knicks are the heavy underdog again. They've been the underdog throughout the whole series, Alex. The whole series. So where's your head at? Now, we're talking about realistic. We're talking about money here, so I want you to put your Knicks fandom away. If you're betting on the series correct score, Knicks in 6, Cavs in 6, Knicks in 7, Cavs in 7, where would you put your money down? Where's your heart tell you?
I mean, I called Knicks in 7, man, to be honest with you.
Knicks in 7.
I called Knicks in 7, and I'm going to stick with that. Not probably. I am going to stick with that just because it's going to be a battle. It's going to go. These teams are so evenly matched. Like, don't be fooled by game 2 and all the turnovers. I expect Tibbs. Tibbs is definitely in that film room right now, going over everything and harping to his guys what they have to work on for games 3 and 4. So I expect a big adjustment. But I'm going with Knicks and 7. I'm going to stick with Knicks and 7, just because I think this team's got enough. I think the Cavs are they're a little more inexperienced and where it really matters most at the head coach. And not that, I know everyone's talking about Tom Thibodeau's going to coach circles around JB Bickerstaff. Look, this is a game of adjustments, game by game, right? It's 100%. Going to be the last couple of games where it's like in-game adjustments are going to matter the most.
And we did not do, I don't think, one in-game adjustment in game 2, which cannot happen again. So the Knicks are actually favorited in Vegas for Game 3 because I guess we're back home. Yeah. They are 2-point favorites, which is, I think, interesting at -2. The money line's at -3. The over-under is at 211.5. I think that, that's one of the lowest over-unders. Oh, no, the Sixers Nets is just around there because it's been a defensive battle. So if you guys want to sign up for BetUS, click the link down below in the description. You get $50 when you sign up for free without even having to make a deposit. And you got a lot of fun bets if you guys want to make some parlays around the NBA playoffs, not even just the Knicks. If you're a little worried about betting on your Knicks because they're a squad, you want to bet around somewhere else, make sure you guys use the code down below in the description. And again, shout out to BetUS for sponsoring today's live show. So I found it interesting, actually, that the Knicks are favorited because usually they're not. But I guess that's because of home court, right?
Probably. I mean, the Cavs were favored in Game 1 and the Knicks took it. So,
yeah.
I mean, take it with a grain of salt what it is. But I think we'll see the Knicks bounce back in Game 3. What I like about the Knicks right now, especially in their post-game press conference, they're not doing the crying that the Cavaliers are doing about physicality, anything like that. You hear that's like, oh, they did what they had to do, X, Y, and Z. We just got to go back, be ready for Game 2. And you just hear that they're just so focused.
They're wired. They're focused in, man. I love that. I agree. Corey has a question for us. Richie, Alex, do you see a big advantage for the Knicks to win both games in that Madison Square Garden? Well, the Garden is the world's most famous arena. And I said at the top of the show, Alex mentioned it as well, the Knicks have home court advantage now. And if they want to win this series, all they got to do, and I know that's a lot to ask for, protect home court. Win all the games at the Garden, we win the damn series. So how much of an advantage do you think the Knicks have at home compared to even the Cavs or other teams?
I think it should be a good advantage. Playoffs are different. I always am afraid of like that random player, that random role player getting hot at the Garden. We've seen Zeke Naji. We've seen Ricky Rubio do the
I was at that game. Yeah, I was about to say him.
Yeah. I'm sorry that you had to be there for that.
It was so bad.
We had to watch Ricky Rubio just be a
career high.
That was crazy. Things that just rarely ever happen. But this is the playoffs, right? Usually the role players don't play well on the road, as we saw for our guys in Cleveland. So maybe we'll get the same thing for Cleveland when they come to Madison Square Garden. The interesting point for both of these teams is that the Knicks weren't necessarily a great home team, although they did end it very well. The Cavs are a very bad road team. They're 20-21 on the road. So you would think that plays into the favor of the Knicks, especially for this one. We'll see. I expect this to be a good advantage for the Knicks, though.
They got to feed off the crowd, man. I'm looking at Obi Toppin as well. I mean, even though he's getting limited minutes, I'm looking at Obi to really wake this Garden up with some highlights. And, I don't want to sound like, oh, we're going to win just by getting some fast break dunk opportunities. But the Knicks crowd loves Obi the most. I think as a collective, we get Obi chants. It's just like, for whatever reason, Obi's is their guy just because he's flashy. But another thing about this Knicks team, Alex, that I think they need to really focus in on, that a big reason why they won Game 1 and another big reason why they lost Game number 2 is playing in transition. I think this Knicks team is at their best when they push and they get quick buckets and early in the shot clock, and they're pushing the pace. And when we don't do that, we saw exactly what happens. In Game number 2, the Cavaliers, we allowed them to get into their half-court defense. And that's when the Cavaliers' defense is at their best. And in Game number 1, we were running. And even rewind a couple weeks back when we versed the Cavaliers in that final regular season game in Cleveland when Brunson went crazy. That was our first game without Julius. Even Donovan Mitchell was saying, yeah, they play fast, and we were not able to get back on defense. That is where this Knicks team is at their best offensively, playing in transition, pushing the pace. Even when the Cavaliers get a made bucket, you inbound it quickly and you run down the court and you try to get an easy look. And I feel like in Game 2, the Knicks just abandoned that for whatever reason. I think the identity of this Knicks team, which can go game by game because it's not like you're relying on shooting, is playing fast, playing physical, playing great defense, and rebounding. I think that's the identity of this squad and what they have to do on a consistent basis. And for whatever reason, it went away in Game 2, so they got to get back to that. So what's your thoughts of the Knicks pushing the pace in transition as their weapon, especially at the Garden, because that's where the energy from the crowd comes in when you play fast?
I agree with 100% with you, Richie. Those are all great points. And this is where you want someone like Obi Toppin, right? Because of his ability to put the defense on their heels. And that's kind of what you want to see with with Tom Thibodeau making that type of adjustment, because you can use Randall to be that thunder with the physicality, the brute force to take on Evan Mobley. But then you can also switch it up and change gears and just go run fast, I should say, with Obi Toppin and put Evan Mobley on his heels. And we saw that work towards the end of in the last game of the regular season. And not saying we should take that as like the end all be all to how this is going to work out for the Knicks. But when Mobley's out there playing the backup center role, force him to have to go out and transition, force him to have to work hard, because for him to constantly adjust to two different types of play styles, that's tough to do. So I'd like to see the Knicks get out there and transition and score. And, you talk about the crowd feeding into it when Obi Toppin gets a dunk. I mean, the team feeds into it too. Don't think that it's an electric. It's synergy. So when you get someone who can do that, it just starts to boost the confidence and the energy. The adrenaline starts going. So that's where you want to see from Obi Toppin as well. And to be honest, I've been pretty impressed with what Obi's done, even in his limited minutes.
Yeah, me too. He's like the only young player on this team that's showed up in the playoffs, even though he's had very limited minutes. He's hitting his threes. He's becoming just a 3-point specialist, which I don't like, because we think of Obi as a dunker, but he just sits in the corner and he either airballs it or he swishes it. It's one of those two, Alex. It never rims out, right?
No, it's very rare. It's very rare that it does rim out.
It's a swish or a UFO, as Clyde would say.
And here we have a UFO.
It's hilarious. It's like, all right, Obi, catch that. And then his next shot, it's an air ball. You're like, all right, Obi.
It's so far off. It's so far off. But, like we saw at the end of the season, him get into a rhythm. So I think that's definitely helped him in this playoff series. But definitely need him to bring that energy to Madison Square Garden. Because once you hear a roaring Madison Square Garden crowd, that's intimidating for the opponent.
Which is why we need to get off to a hot start, because I'm nervous that if the first quarter does not go in our favor, the crowd's going to get sucked out of the game. And when that happens, then it's really hard for the Knicks to find their rhythm. So if you're going to the game Friday night, tomorrow night, please be loud no matter what the score is, because anything can happen. Even if you're down 15 in the third quarter, there's still a comeback chance. So be loud, go crazy. Let's freaking go. So there is actually a couple players that we did not mention that I want to get your thoughts of. And those are the two big men in Mitchell Robinson and Isaiah Hartenstein. I think Mitchell Robinson has had a solid series. He hasn't had one of those series where it's just been absolutely terrible. In game one, he was a monster defending Evan Mobley on the boards. Isaiah Hartenstein, I feel like, had a pretty bad game too. I'm not going to lie. I did not like what I saw from Hartenstein in game two. I was like watching the game with my boys and I was hyping up Hartenstein and they're like, dude, this guy's trash. I'm like, no, he's playing trash right now. But I'm telling you, Hartenstein's nice. Like all season, like he's been nice off the bench. So I look like an idiot. So what's your thoughts of those two boys? Because I think those are big X factors of getting second chance opportunities. That's where this Knicks team thrives, of getting second chance looks. And in game two, they beat us on the glass.
Oh man, that's funny. That's funny. It's like CP on Knicks Fan TV hyping up Hartenstein. He has a terrible first half of the season, and then he starts turning around. He's like, I told you, just like, yeah, no, I feel you. And Hartenstein was good in game one, and for game two, he looked bad because he was left out there for the most time because you needed floor spacing, and his passing can do that. I like what I'm seeing for Mitchell Robinson. He didn't get to play much game two because once again, they tried to space the floor, get guys cutting, and we didn't really see that as much. Hartenstein, it was a mixed bag game two because I think he was left out there to dry because you couldn't use the rim protection that Mitchell Robinson offers you. So I expect him to bounce back in game three. They both have been playing an even amount of minutes, which has been great because you look at Mobley and Allen, and they're both playing upwards of 35, 38, close to 40 minutes per game. And that's exhausting to have your two centers fresh and recharged, ready to go back in there and give you a good defensive effort. I like it. I think we'll see a good bounce back from Hartenstein. And for them, I don't really expect them to do anything monstrous, right? They're there truly as cogs in the machine. Mitch to be that rim runner, defensive anchor, and then Hartenstein to be that facilitator and he's become a pretty decent defensive anchor for that second unit. So I like the versatility that we have with both of them.
I agree, man. Corey says, Richie, you were right about the Knicks losing in game two because I felt overconfident about them leading 2-0 instead of 1-1. Well, yeah, I am sad to be correct about that. I was live, Alex, and I'm like, guys, I don't know why I'm not feeling good about tonight. Like, we got to slow down. I saw Knicks fans get a little over the top of like, oh, let's go again, Knicks in 4, Knicks in 5. I was like, guys, this series is going to 6 and 7 games. Like, I'm sorry, but like, this Cavs, we're the underdogs. The Cavaliers are a freaking good team. Don't let game 1 just make you feel like we're just going to cruise through. And that's what a series is about. You adjust, you learn. And unfortunately, I was right. But I'm going to be right this time, Alex, because we are winning both games at the Garden in game 3 and 4. How about that?
Let's go.
We are defending our home court, okay? And I like your points about Isaiah Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson, because they are kind of like they're not the flashy ones, but they are so important with second chance looks. And Mitchell Robinson is one of the best, if not the best, offensive rebounders in the entire NBA. And he needs to be on his A game tomorrow night at the Garden, because blocking shots, getting second chance looks. I also felt like not even Mitch, but the whole team, whenever they had the ball in the paint, they just kept losing it. Like they're either trying to go up with it or looking to pass out, but they kept fumbling it. And I think that was the Cavaliers just swiping at it and just kept swiping, hands on the ball. The Cavaliers just beat us in every single aspect of a basketball game in game number 2. And that just simply cannot happen again. So when it comes to the physicality topic and the toughness and everything about it, like, what do you think it's going to be like? Like, I was looking at Jalen Brunson getting shoved and elbowed and then punched in the mouth at least 3 different times. Grimes is bleeding from the mouth. We saw Randall get crazy fouled at the end of the game. Like, what do you think that the vibe is going to be in terms of physicality and like the toughness? Like, are the refs going to let them play? Is it going to be another version of game 2 where everyone's just throwing haymakers at each other, setting hard screens and going at each other physically, or are they going to tone it back a little bit?
I think they're going to let them play. And, you know, to a certain degree, it wasn't fairly called in the first half. I'm not blaming like the loss on the refs, but there were moments where I'm like, that's a foul. You're not calling that. That's a foul. And, you know, we talked about it on Knicks Fan TV where in game 2, and even CP likes to bring up that Harden brought this up after beating the Nets in game 1, that, you know, the refs kind of allow the other team an opportunity to get back into the series, right? So that's why usually game 2 is the hardest. And you saw, like, once after the first half ended, then you started to see fouls become, I'd say, a little bit more evenly called. But the first half is like what really sets the tone for everything, right? So I expect the refs to allow them to play in game 2. Now, it's up to the Knicks to come out and be the aggressors no matter what. Like yeah, we saw some hard screens, some illegal screens, to be honest with you. Like there's one that was floating around with Jarrett Allen setting a moving screen on Jalen Brunson, then checking in on him and then grabbing a rebound. I'm like, that's a moving screen. Like you see that not get called, and that's like,
and you see the Cavs coach dap him up after. Yep, that's what our game plan was.
Yeah, and it's like it's stuff like that where I'm saying that's not evenly called, right? Because if someone else did that for the Knicks in the first half, it'd be like, whoa, we're cutting that right now. So it's stuff like that where I think they're going to allow them to play in game 3, but the Knicks overall have to be the aggressors. Even when the Cavs punch, they got to punch twice as hard. If they come back punching again, they got to punch 3 times as hard. The Knicks are a more physical team. Like, I don't look at the Cavs as a very physical team from that aspect. They got some shots. Now it's time for the Knicks to go out and give them a good beating, in my opinion. So that's one thing I want to see. But just to tap on to your point about offensive rebounding, if you go by the regular season, Mitch was second in offensive rebounds, averaging 4.5. Hartenstein, 20th, averaging 2.5. So we got 2 of the best offensive rebounders on the team.
And that is such a big advantage that the Knicks have to take advantage of that they did not in game number 2. That was a big reason why we won game 1. And it just feels like the Cavaliers took away everything that we did well in game 1. And that's just a credit to coaching. Like, you just got to tip your caps. Unfortunately, you don't want to do it. You don't want to give them the respect. They're the rivals for this couple weeks. But the Cavaliers watched the film, and it was just a masterful job on their end. So now it's up to the Knicks to do the same thing, learning from their mistakes and punching them. And I think the physicality needs to be set a tone early on as well. That you're back at the Garden. Things are going to be a little different back here, and the Garden crowd's going to feed off of it. We've already talked about that, but it really comes down to these 9 players, and there is one player that's not in the rotation that when we talk about defense and physicality that I feel like I'd love to see. And I thought that he might be playing with Josh Hart being down, but Josh Hart eventually played. We saw him come out there for 15 seconds. My man Deuce, get the deuces loose. I mean, that's an adjustment that we could be talking about. You talk about defense, you talk about physicality. Another thing that the Cavaliers did that we didn't mention is they were full court pressing us, and we were turning it over. Like, it actually got to the Knicks, and that's what Deuce does the best, full court pressing on inbounds. So is there any chance that Tom Thibodeau finds minutes for Deuce and opening up to a 10-man rotation, or is that like, nope, Deuce, sorry, you're only coming in for like 15 seconds left in the second quarter for a defensive stop?
I think he's going to have to open it up. I think you got to pull out your whole bag of tricks, and
we got a weapon. Use them.
Yeah, I think you got to get Deuce out there, especially on Garland, right? I mean, Garland was cooking RJ in game 2.
Oh yeah,
guy who can get skinny, get around screens, and just stick to the hip. That's Deuce McBride. And even if you have him out there for 5, 6, 7 minutes, and you can disrupt Garland from getting into rhythm for a portion of the game, you got to do that. And so I was expecting him to play. I wrote an article for Knicks Fan TV because there was a whole question with Josh Hart playing game 2. And I don't even know if Josh should have played game 2 just because he was fine, but he didn't jump off the screen like we normally see from him.
He didn't have that dog feel, that like pushing the pace, just like usual Josh Hart energy. You're right.
And it might be because – you're worried about re-aggravating the ankle. You just want to make it through the game, try to stay in rhythm. And I totally understand that aspect. But I think Tibbs could have managed Hart's minutes a little bit more and get Deuce in there and really get somebody to really get under Garland's skin and just irritate the living daylights out of him, make it that much more difficult to get to the spots. The issue with Deuce is he going to give you offense? So if he's not giving you offense, you can't leave him out there for that long because, as we talked about with RJ, everyone's just going to collapse the paint. So that's that issue with Deuce McBride. But I think we're going to see – I feel like we're going to see Deuce get some minutes here and there, especially to defend Garland.
Yeah, I mean, Garland was like that player that everyone forgot about because game 1, it was all Donovan, and that's how we won the game. And we mentioned that at the top of the show as well, that we shut down the rest of the team and Donovan went off, but we still won. And then in game 2 is the opposite. Donovan didn't have to do anything. He became the facilitator, and then Garland went off. So now what's going to happen in game number 3? Is it going to be Donovan? Is it going to be Garland? Is it going to be Mobley's time to shine? Who, by the way, has not impressed me at all this series. I'm curious to see if he finds his rhythm because he's a young player. But I like the approach of Deuce going up against Darius Garland because Garland is an all-star. I mean, that man is a good player, and I don't want to say I was sleeping on him, but game 1 kind of made me forget about him because my mind is just completely on shutting down Donovan Mitchell. So it kind of makes me worried in a way, like, okay, is it going to be Donovan's night? Is it going to be Darius Garland's night? And that goes back to my point again. If one of those players is going off, yes, we got to defend them, but we need one of ours to go off to balance that out. We need Brunson to start putting up 27, 30 points. We need Randall to do that. That's what the stars need to do. They need to step up to the plate at this spot. This is where the bright stage is. And if you look at the NBA playoffs, the role players help out. The depth of the Knicks and the depth of other players on other teams is a reason why you win championships. But the stars is where you win in this league. And we have 2 of them that I think we can all say with confidence. 2-time All-Star Julius Randle, should have been an All-Star in Jalen Brunson. They have to have big-time games and not allow the Cleveland Cavaliers defense to rattle them because that's what it felt like. They were blitzing and double-teaming them both, and there was nobody else to spray it around to, and it does not help them if you're spraying the ball around to guys that are not in rhythm, like Grimes missing his shots, and he's not even shooting when the ball's in his hands, and that is on Brunson as well. So it's just an overall mess from game 2, man. So I'm just hopeful that the Knicks can build off of that game 1 win, adjust, feed off the Garden crowd, and I'm hoping for the best, man. Alex, I appreciate you hopping on the show, man. And I think that this is going to be a very interesting weekend, bro. What's your predictions about Friday night and Sunday afternoon, man? It's going to be...
Oh man,
I don't know how to finish it off, man. I'm getting a little nervous now that I'm thinking about
it. If it's going 7, 6 or 7, that means
splitting these games.
It's either we gotta split these games, or Knicks got to win these two, and then Cleveland goes home, wins theirs, and then we go back and win at the Garden. It's got to be something of that nature. I would love for this team to get 2 wins at home. They need to show that they get 2 wins. If they can get 2 wins at home, it's a wrap. Absolutely a wrap. I'm confident that they can do it. We just need to see, does everybody show up that we need to show up? And it's not just, as you point out, Brunson. It's not just Randall. We need Grimes and Quickley, man. Those two, and RJ. But, like, mainly we need shooting right now.
Yeah.
We need shooting because
the team shooting is bad.
Get out of the paint. Force these guys to get out of the paint, man. It's tough when you're watching like how many times do we have to watch RJ or Randall get into the paint and then be like, yo, there's 4 bodies around here, 4 bodies. I got to pass this thing out. And then it leads to a turnover. So we need some shooting, man. That's what we really need. But I think we're going to win game 3. I would like to say we win game 4. I will not give a prediction on that just because I need to see 3. I'm confident in game 3, though. Very confident in game 3.
You're confident in game 3 heading in?
Yeah.
I like that. And I like your point there. It felt like whenever RJ or Randall or even Brunson at times would collapse and attack, there was like 3 or 4 bodies and they were not able to spray the ball out. And that's where they need to adjust. They need to be able to read the field. And it feels like the playmaking is not there as a collective, as a team. And that's where this Knicks rhythm offensively comes with the continuity and the ball movement. If the paint's collapsing and there's 3 people in your face, you spray the ball out, you kick it out, get a hockey assist or something. Like, that's what this Knicks team's got to do. They got to play unselfish basketball. Brunson got to stop thinking that he has to be superhero. He does not need to be that. Maybe in the clutch in the fourth quarter you do, but early on, help your teammates get in rhythm. I love your point early on, man, because Jalen Brunson, I felt like early in that first quarter was taking contested looks. He can hit those. We know that he can, but I'd rather him spread the ball around. If you're getting double teamed, allow other players to get involved, and we'll see what happens, man. So, again, I don't want to give my predictions of game 4 yet either. We got to see game 3, but me and you will be there at Madison Square Garden at game number 4, and I hope that I see you there, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Let's definitely make sure to link up. You got my number. I got your number, so we'll text that day.
Are you going with the Knicks Fan TV crew, or who are you going with?
Yes, sir. It'll be me, CP, my boy. The Knicks chick will be there. We got a good crew going over there to make sure that we got to give support, man. All right. I don't want to hear none of this booing. So we got to cheer for our team while they're in the Garden. All right. Come on. None of that.
If I hear one person boo when we're losing, I'm gonna freaking lose my mind, bro.
Like, yo, this is not the time to do that. Not with this team.
It's really not, man. Like, if we're down by like 15 points, that's what my biggest gripe is, bro. We're losing and we think it's over and we start booing. Like, bro, there's a chance to come back. Cheer for a comeback. Cheer defense. Don't cheer boo.
And if you watch the league this season, I mean, look, you could just watch that Nuggets Wolves game. Look how close it got towards the end last night, right? Like 15 points in the league is. In today's league, that's not sustainable.
Exactly.
You can easily lose that in a heartbeat. So just gotta keep the faith, man. Gotta keep the faith.
Exactly. And we got to be loud and proud. All the Knicks fans at the Garden, even if you're not going to the Garden, I want you yelling that we hear you from your living rooms, from the bars, from wherever you're watching it. So, Alex, again, I appreciate you tuning in. If you guys enjoyed Alex being a special guest on Knicks Media, do your boy a favor and hit that thumbs up button. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning into another Knicks Media live stream. Alex does a phenomenal job over there on Knicks Fan TV. He writes articles for them. He's live with them. He's on the post-game show, the pre-game show, the Knicks Weekly show. You guys know what Knicks Fan TV brings to the table. If you're not subscribed to Knicks Fan TV, I don't know what the heck you're doing. So that's linked down below in the description for Knicks Fans TV's YouTube channel, as well as Alex Twitter. He's got a lot of fun things coming your way covering the New York Knicks. Alex, again, always a pleasure to have you on, my man. Thank you to all the Knicks fans tuning in. Hope to have you on sometime in the future. Absolutely, Richie. Always a pleasure hopping on talking Knicks with you, man. If no people better be subscribing here too, man. You do a phenomenal job running this channel. I know Jets Media is the big one that everyone knows you for, but make sure to tune into Knicks Media too. Richie's doing great work over here. All right. I appreciate that, Alex. You're the man. Let's go Knicks. Let's go Jets. Peace out, everybody.